normal way. In consideration of the hag's old age, we ended the party around 11 p.m. We all helped to clean up, with the woman washing the dishes in the kitchen, and the men folding the tables and putting them away in the storeroom. It only took about 30 minutes, then everyone left, one after another. By then, Mio was no longer acting as the Sonozaki's successor and was back to being her normal self. Maybe I drank too much. I was lying on the tatami floor. Kasai asked if I could get in the car, so I told him I'd barf if I got in now. Sis, can I spend the night here? I just want to sleep. Granny will get mad if she finds you. By the way, don't you have school tomorrow, Shion? No, tomorrow's our school anniversary, so there's no class. How many times a year does your school have its anniversary? Oh well. Okay, Kasai, she can stay here tonight. Understood. Good night. Come on, Shion, wake up. Granny will get really mad if you fall asleep here. Here, hold on to me. You can sleep in my room. I was left alone all of a sudden in this late night. My alter ego told me that I'm in a demon's stomach. If I wouldn't have woken up, if I hadn't heard that voice, I might not have woken up at all. Notebook page 165. Oh my God. I didn't remember much after that. I was probably brought to Mion's room and immediately crawled into the futon. After a while, Mion got her futon ready next to me, turned the lights off, and went to sleep. At least that's what I thought. I got up and turned the lights on. Mion's futon was empty. The futon felt cold. Mion must have left it a while ago. Did she go to the bathroom? No, the closest bathroom was right down the hallway. The light in the bathroom was off. Where did she go? The ticking of the clock was loud and annoying in this quiet. The hands pointed to a little before 3 a.m. I was left all of a sudden, in this late night. I felt the eeriness of the ritual storehouse coming back to me, despite drinking it away with alcohol earlier. I tried to sense my surroundings in this house. There shouldn't be an eerie atmosphere, strange noises, or footsteps. I stepped out into the freezing cold hallway to look for Mion. When I did, I immediately noticed light coming from one of the nearby rooms. That room belonged to the hag. The hag went to sleep early and woke up early. She was very strict about her bedtime, so it was strange to see her light on in the middle of the night. I could hear voices, too. Those voices belonged to the hag and Mion. I creeped up to the room and listened to their conversation. Since it was the middle of the night, I could hear their words very clearly. But you know, those young ones went too far. You're right, they made Oyashiro angry, so I guess I got what they deserved. Mion's voice sounded as cold as the one I heard down in the torture room. I held my breath. The police say they're investigating, but are you sure? I guess it's probably Takano. My heart almost stopped. Oyashiro got angry. The police are investigating. It's probably Takano. And what day was it today? Those words told me something was happening. My teeth started to chatter. I desperately tried to stop them. I felt like my body was swelling up suddenly. I could no longer hear as well. Calm down. Breathe. Listen more carefully. According to Mion and the hag's conversation, another incident definitely took place. The victims were Takano and Tomitake. From what I could tell, both Mion and the hag thought it made sense, whatever it was that happened to them. No. I need to think more calmly. They did say they deserved it for making Oyashiro angry. Did they say Takano and Tomitake made Oyashiro angry? How did they make Oyashiro angry? They knew. My body started to shake. They knew we stuck into the ritual storehouse. Then that would mean Keiichi and I were also subject to Oyashiro's curse? Suddenly a phone rang. The phone was by the front door. The front door was opposite the hag's room, farther down the hall. The ringing echoed throughout the long hallway. It sounded so eerie, almost like it was coming from hell. That was when I felt someone behind me. Of course, there was nobody there when I turned around, but there was someone there a moment ago. I didn't know if it was Satoshi. I didn't sense any emotion, so I couldn't tell. I also didn't know how long I had been there. It was as if somebody was watching me, listening in on their conversation. That was the feeling I got. It couldn't be Satoshi. Satoshi would never be that intimidating or scary. My mind turned all red like it was suffused with blood. Have you experienced anything like that? Those footsteps, they always followed me. They even came to my bedside and looked down at me. I remember what Ryugu Rena had said on that rainy day. You'll be okay if that's true. Oyashiro won't get mad at you. But Oyashiro wasn't angry. Nobody would follow me. Is that what that meant? Ever since we snuck into the shrine storage, something has been following me. What is it? Calm down. That's right, Rena wasn't talking about me. She was talking about Satoshi. That's what happened to Satoshi. Everything he's going through is a sign of Oyashiro's curse. That's right, he encountered the curse of Oyashiro. You feel someone is watching from a distance, and it follows you. A creepy feeling crawled up and spread across my back. Then it watches from right behind you. After that, you start hearing an extra footstep. I swallowed loudly. It was almost as though Ryugu Rena was predicting what would happen to me. Had Rena been talking about Satoshi back then? Or has she actually been talking about me? But you start hearing it even inside your house after a while. And Oyashiro keeps watching you, even when you're sleeping in the dark, right by your side, waiting silently. I knew by now there was no mistake. No matter how I looked at it, she had been talking about me. Yes, me. It had been about me. The curse of Oyashiro was the curse of Oyashiro. That's when I actually felt something for real. Someone grabbed my collar. Ah! No voice come out. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was open and close my mouth as if something was stuck in my throat. It was Mion. She looked even colder than how she looked in the underground torture room. It only made sense that she'd come out into the hallway to answer the phone. I tried to come up with an excuse, however the way Mion looked at me was so cold. Even if I had really run into her by accident, I could tell the look in her eyes. She wouldn't believe me. I felt cold sweat all over my body. I couldn't even move my fingers. Sorry, I apologized. I could have said something to get myself out of the situation, but the apology came out first. But Mion didn't appear to hear me. She walked to the front door, still holding my collar. The phone was still ringing. A normal person usually doesn't let a phone ring so long at this time of night. The phone call itself didn't seem real to me. Mion picked up the phone. This is Mion. I see. I understand. Please take care of things at your end. Also, please make sure that nobody talks about this. Yes. Goodbye. Mion puts down the phone after a short conversation. What does she mean, make sure nobody talks about this? Who called anyway? Mion put her forehead to mine and spoke to me. Did you hear? Which conversation was she asking me about? Well, she had to be talking about the one with the hag. If I said yes, what would happen to me? I don't know what you're talking about. Mion pulled my collar, pressed her nose again on mine, and continued to speak. Just what you heard. The curse of Oyashiro fell upon Tomitake and Takano. It's really very unfortunate. It was like I was talking to myself in a mirror, but what I was saying in the mirror was ever so cold. Sis, what is the curse of Oyashiro? Tomitake clawed out his own throat. Takano was burned to death in an oil drum. Terrible, isn't it? Tomitake crawled out his own throat until he died? What? Tomitake was burned to death in an oil drum? What? I felt something furry crawling up my spine. I also felt like my stomach was turning upside down. I didn't feel any strength in my legs. If Mion let go of my collar, I'd probably collapse on the spot. Why did they die that way? Don't you know, Shion? I'm asking you because I don't know. I don't know. Don't you see there can only be one reason? Please don't talk as if you already know the answer. What do you mean? My heart was pounding. I felt that my next breath would be so bloody and hot that I'd choke on it. Don't you know? It's because they make Oyashiro angry. The first year was the manager. The second year was the traitors. The third year was the pacifists. The fourth year was the relatives of the traitors. I always thought the victims were people who had something to do with the dam conflict, since I didn't do anything against the village during the dam conflict. I assumed I was safe. I should have known. I should have known everything would be the curse of Oyashiro. I knew Oyashiro's anger was the curse of Oyashiro. I knew Oyashiro would get angry if I snuck into the ritual storehouse. But since I wasn't held responsible in any way for the dam conflict, I never thought I would be a victim of the curse. Did I ever think there would be an incident in the 5th year? Did I ever think I'd be the victim of the 5th year incident? Tomitoke snuck into the storehouse and he clawed at his throat until he died. Takano was burned to death in an oil drum. It must be a lie. It couldn't be true. Even if it was forbidden, it was just a space for stories of old torture implements. How could they be killed just for sneaking in there? Especially in such gruesome ways. But I thought about it and realized that those people were absolutely capable of doing things like that. The main Sonosaki family was capable of it. The Sonosaki family had been pulling strings behind this mysterious string of deaths, and they could do it again. The Sonosaki family even kidnapped the grandson of the Minister of Construction during the dam conflict. They could do it. The Sonosaki family made Satoshi disappear completely. They could do it. Mio leaned against me before falling onto the cold hallway floor. She collapsed rather violently. I usually didn't go to sleep without my stun gun, but since I was too drunk to get ready for bed, I still had it on me. I had my stun gun on me. I finally understood. I didn't know who killed them exactly, whose idea it was, or who ordered it. I didn't even know who was actually involved, but Mion and the hag knew everything. Satoshi, now I finally know. I know what I need to do. I'll settle the score for you, Satoshi. I will avenge you, Satoshi. I won't be killed like you, Satoshi. I walked into the hag's room. She was sitting up to take some medicine. Her back was turned to me. Mion and I are twins. If I acted like her, the hag won't even notice the difference. I didn't even think she ever suspected me. I put my stun gun to her neck and pulled the trigger. I heard an indescribable electrical sound. The hag's lights went out. She fell in a twisted position. I didn't know how long it would take for a person to regain their freedom of movement after getting knocked out with a stun gun, so I had to restrain them before they woke back up. I was unbelievably calm. The key to the underground torture room was in the forbidden drawer that only the head of the family can access. Mion had told me about this once. I never looked for the drawer before, but I found it exactly where I thought it would be. The key and the keychain with several of its sisters. Each key had a little plaque on it that said what it was used for. They were all in Mion's handwriting. She was an idiot for being so conscientious, but it sure helped me out. I put the keychain in my pocket and headed to the outdoor storeroom to find the cart. I found a large flashlight there as well. There was a strap on the flashlight so I could put it on my shoulder. That way I have both hands free to carry Mion and the hag. I loaded Mion and our grandmother onto the cart and carried them to the underground torture room camp. I was prepared to use the stun gun again if they woke up while I was working, but it was more powerful than I imagined. The hag showed no signs of waking. This is the stun gun that Kasai specially ordered for me when I told him I wanted a powerful one. I remember him telling me it was an illegally modified stun gun and that I should never use it just for fun. I used my flashlight to find the light switch. I found it easily and turned it on. All the lights went on in the basement. Although there was now illumination, it was very dim. I moved quickly as to finish up what I needed to do before they woke up. I decided to put Mion in a cell beyond the torture room. The lights in the torture room were so bright it was like daylight. There was a door there, and I was fairly certain the cells were on the other side of that door. The proper key was here. The keys made a tinkling sound. I felt a cold air coming in through the gap in the door. There must be a huge opening on the other side. I opened the door and saw nothing but darkness. I fell along the wall to find a light switch. I turned the switch on and the light bulb lit up, revealing a huge rocky cave. It didn't look like a natural cave. It looked more like an air raid shelter. There were several hollow openings with bars across them. Those were the cells. I walked to the closest cell and checked to see if it was strong enough to confine her. I pushed and pulled on the bars. I rammed against them with all my weight and decided that they were perfectly sturdy. This is secure enough to be called a cell. I opened the lock and carried Mion in. I wasn't particularly strong, just average. I never thought I was strong enough to carry a whole person, but now I didn't need to pretend to be weak. I could easily lift and drag their bodies. I put Mion in the cell. She seemed to moan a little. I didn't need to check to make sure. The effect of my stun gun was wearing off. I closed the bars and turned the key in the lock. Then I ran to the hag, who must have been starting to wake up too. Fortunately, there was no sign of her regaining consciousness. Maybe the difference in age had something to do with it. I looked for a table to restrain her on, and I found a wheelchair with restraints for the hands and feet, and I put the hag in it. Of course she didn't resist, but her dead weight made it seem like she was a huge French doll, but one made of flesh. I put her hands in the armrests and restrained them at the wrists with metal rings and hinges. I did the same with her feet. This must have been a wheelchair specially remodeled to restrain a person. Other than its restraints, it was a regular wheelchair. I waited for the hag to wake up. I had so many things I wanted to ask her. I didn't think she'd answer honestly, but I had plenty of tools to make her talk. I was in no rush. When the hag had a concern, relatives took care of the problem. That was how it worked in the Sonozaki family. She was the leader of the family, so all the information they would gather would make its way to her. She must know everything that happened in Hinamizawa, including the curse of Oyashiro. I heard a noise from the cell. Mio must have woken up before the hag did. Speaking of the hag, she didn't seem like she was about to wake up anytime soon, but she had been restrained, so even if she did, I had no need to fear. I left the hag there and headed for the cell. Shion, what do you think you're doing? She talked like the successor, but she also sounded frightened. She obviously understood the situation she was in right now. Good morning, Mion. You never thought you'd be in here, huh? As the acting head, I order you, open this up. You don't sound so scary in there. You need to talk more like a leader, don't you think? Though, talking that way will only make you look like a fool. There was nothing funny about it, but I wanted to intimidate Mion. My laughter echoed throughout the cave. It was artificial and meaningless laughter. I heard it over and over as it echoed. It sounded as if I wasn't the only one laughing. I couldn't stand it, so I stopped. Silence filled the air. That silence almost hurt my ears, so I started to speak. I never thought Tomitake and Takano would be the victims. What an idea to burn Takano to death, but actually, she'd be the kind of person who would prefer to die that way. Maybe she's satisfied, huh? Mio didn't say anything. She just stared up at me to see how I'd proceed. What about the way Tomitake died? He clawed out his own throat, right? Did you give him a shot of some kind? Or is there a torture device that did that to him? Mio didn't reply. I was smiling boldly, but I became impatient and finally kicked the bars. It made a violent noise. Mio jumped as if she was kicked directly. It's boring not to get any answers. Do you have any idea what will happen if I get angry? How would I know? Mio finally replied. She was odious, but at the same time sounded pitiful. Hey, Mio, as a successor, why don't you tell me? Let's see. I had just too many things I wanted to ask her. I wanted to ask her about me, about the incident, about the curse, about Satoshi. I didn't even know where to start. Before I asked her about those, I asked her one other thing. You know there's no point in trying to resist, don't you? Mio glared at me silently. Because we were twins, I knew that was just a bluff. We've come this far. There's no point in me hesitating anymore. You shouldn't expect hesitation or even mercy from me, sis. Mio must have been feeling the cold sweat on her face. Although the light was dim, I could tell she was frightened. Okay, here I go. First, about the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa, also known as the Curse of Oyashiro. What's the meaning of it? Is it to signify the end of the dam conflict? I think so. Mio sounded a little confused, but she answered. I felt satisfaction now that we were communicating. I continued with a smile. You think, huh? Don't you know the details? You know yourself that the successor is simply a messenger for Granny. Yeah, right. But the successor must know everything the current head is thinking, right? Do you really think I believe that you're just a messenger? Although I'm always around Granny, I don't always know what she's thinking. It's not like I can understand her all the time. Okay, so you're saying that everything about the curse of Oyashiro is decided by the hag herself, right? I assume she talked to the successor about it. When it's something dangerous, Granny decides it on her own. I don't have anything to do with it. But even if she decides by herself, the hag uses you to take care of various things, doesn't she? And you're telling me you don't know anything? No, she doesn't use me for that. I really don't understand it myself, but it's like I take care of problems on the surface and someone else takes care of the problems on the underside. Who? Who's the person that takes care of these underside problems? I don't know. Haven't you seen anyone? Haven't you overheard a phone conversation? It must be someone who gets in touch with the hag at the same time every year, around the time the curse happens. I don't know. I really don't. Mio shook her head. Okay. Let me change the question. Why were Tomitake and Takano chosen as victims, even though they had nothing to do with the dam conflict? Was it because they snuck into the ritual storehouse? As soon as Mion heard the words ritual storehouse, her expression shifted. The ritual storehouse? Did they intrude on the storehouse at the Furude Shrine? Didn't you know? I thought you already knew. If they really did that, then it was truly stupid of them. Of course something would happen to them. Mio muttered bitterly while shaking her head repeatedly. Mion's reaction made me realize the true meaning of the forbidden storehouse for the ritual implements. The ritual storehouse is a sacred building, so nobody can go inside. The curse will fall onto anyone who disobeys. Any child would know that rule. However, just because they knew about it didn't mean they all believed in it. Although they were told it would be cursed, most of the kids actually enjoyed hearing the stories. They simply didn't believe it was true. However, Mion's reaction told me it absolutely was. If they actually did that, of course something would happen to them. She was saying if someone snuck into the ritual storehouse, that person would be killed. What you know and what I know aren't matching up anymore. Of course I'm aware I shouldn't just waltz into the storehouse, but it killed in such a gruesome way for doing it. I never knew that, did you? That's just because you're ignorant about it, Shion. Well, sorry for being ignorant. Could you please explain it to me? Just like you said, the kids don't really believe in the curse. They just assume it's just superstition, but they also know if an adult found out they'd be in big trouble. But to the elderly people of Hinamizawa, it's something more serious. Mie explained to me how the elderly people blindly believe in Oyashiro and how sacred the festivals are. It's probably something younger generations would never understand, but they're possessed by a very strong, deeply rooted devotion toward Oyashiro. Mio went on to tell me how sinful it was to violate the rule of the ritual storehouse. I just couldn't believe things like that were still going on even in modern day. I couldn't even reply appropriately, but even if it was unbelievable, I couldn't ignore what I was hearing from my twin sister. I see, but Mio, doesn't the rule say that one victim gets killed by the curse and the other has to become a sacrifice? The body of the sacrifice is never to be found, but there are two bodies this time. What do you think of that? Mio doesn't know. Besides Takano and Tomitake, Keiichi and I also snuck into the ritual storehouse, so I tried to lead her a little. I know, that doesn't make sense. Maybe Takano's burned body wasn't supposed to be found. Maybe the intention was for her to vanish. Or, I'm not too sure, but... What? Just say what you're thinking. I won't get mad. Mion hesitated a little and started to speak. Actually, 4 people snuck into the shrine's storage, so maybe... Maybe what? Maybe the other 2 will become sacrifices and get demoned away? Mion's words were stuck in my head. If those 2 bodies were a result of the curse, then there should be 2 sacrifices to calm Oyashiro's anger. The 4 of us snuck into the shrine storage together. It was a simple equation. Did it mean that Keiichi and I were in danger? I got drunk, fell asleep, and decided to stay overnight. Was it because of the alcohol, or did somebody put a drug in my drink? It's not like me to get drunk and spend a night at the hag's house. I wanted to forget what happened in the eerie storehouse, so I drank too much, but it really was strange for me to get that drunk. Maybe it was a good thing I woke up in the middle of the night. I could have been the one to wake up in a cell. Sometimes it's hard to recognize danger when you avoid it accidentally. A part of me wanted to just laugh at the idea, but another part felt frightened that I was so close to being in Mion's position. If my thinking was correct, I wonder how Maibara Keiichi was doing right now. I didn't see him in any of the cells, but that didn't guarantee his safety. Takano and Tomitake had been executed. There's a possibility that Keiichi could already be dead, but just like what happened to Satoshi, it might only happen after a few days. When the sun rose, I was going to pretend to be Mion and head to her school. I was going to check if Maibara Keiichi was safe. If he had already disappeared, the enemy would come after me next. I'd have to be a decoy for myself, but if he was still safe, I'd need to keep my eyes on him. I was sure the enemy would come after that scatterbrain. If I became Mion, Shion would disappear. The enemy would think Shion had already been demoned away. They'd concentrate on Keiichi. If nothing happened to Keiichi, I would also be fine. It proved that nothing would happen to me either. The hag was still sleeping in the wheelchair. I was going to interrogate her, but actually, I wasn't expecting to learn that much. That woman, who was also known as Empress Sonozaki, probably wouldn't say a thing even if her fingers were cut off. Mion, her successor, was the complete opposite. She spoke readily, but didn't know too much about anything. Mion had said she was only a messenger, and that someone else was taking care of the problems on the underside. It's possible that Mion had grown to be a good liar, and that she tried to deceive me with a straight face. But at the same time, I could see that hag not letting Mion get involved in the underside of the village. If I were her, I wouldn't have used Mion for that either. Unlike me, Mion was a nice person. While there are only 1s and 0s in this world, she believed that there were numbers with decimal points. In other words, she could never be cruel. If the hag felt the same way as I do, it was very possible. The one who took care of the problems on the underside X was the one who actually governed the curse of Oyashiro. If the hag became concerned about something, X would deal with it. either directly or indirectly. Or maybe the hag and X would discuss the details first. But did X really exist? If he did, his place in the village hierarchy was a lot more important than that of the successor. Unlike Mion, who was too nice, he was discreet, cruel, and cunning. Furthermore, he was extremely close to the hag, someone who would have a lot of contact with her just before it was time for the curse. Because of the way Tomitake died, it could be someone who regularly dealt with unusual drugs. He could be a member of the medical institution. The director of the Irie clinic. Irie? In this isolated village, Irie was famous for opening such a beautiful clinic, and for working so hard for the villagers' sake. The villagers liked his mature personality and really respected him. There's nothing scarier than a doctor who's also a murderer. If Irie was the person behind the curse, all the mysterious deaths could be explained. However, there was only a slim chance of Irie being X, the main reason being that the hag wouldn't trust him. Like many of the elderly, the hag doesn't like young people. I knew she'd never trust him because of his age. Furthermore, she had openly criticized his behavior among the relatives once. Although Irie was famous, he was an outsider after all. He wasn't born here. He tried to maintain a good relationship with the villagers as the director of the clinic, but that's just on the surface. I couldn't even imagine the hag telling him about her worries, or the village's underside. If she was suspicious of the others as I was, that she'd only gather trustworthy people to deal with that underside. Hey, remember that tip where she actually talked with Irie, the grandma? The first people that came to my mind were the leaders of the three families. Leaving Rika out, the head of the Kimiyoshi family was a strong possibility. He was the one who could advise Empress Sonozaki. They were of a similar age, and everyone knew that they were very close outside the family councils. Furthermore, as the mayor, he often went to the Sonozaki house just before the Watanagashi to discuss festival preparations. I could easily picture them talking privately. The one who executed the curse of Oyashiro, the one who murdered Takano and Tomitake, the mastermind behind the series of mysterious deaths that have been going on for the past 5 years. Was he coming after me? Did he get to Satoshi? When I thought about Satoshi, I felt elevated. I was fearful of possibly being this year's victim until just a moment ago. I was scared that X was after me. But when I thought about it, I realized, whoever it was, this person had gone Satoshi. I looked so hard, but I couldn't find him. I almost forgotten about this enemy, for better or for worse. He was going to appear before me again. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find that enemy, but now he was trying to find me. That was it. I wasn't only being chased, I was chasing too. When I realized all this, I was no longer afraid of dying to the 5th year's curse. It had become a game. I wasn't only being threatened, I was threatening too. Now's the time to settle a score for Satoshi. Now's the time to awaken passions that had grown weak over the past year. I could feel righteous indignation and courage flare up within me. The only emotion that can defeat fear is anger. When my anger completely overtook my fear, I felt as if I were reborn. Why don't you wake up, Empress of Hags? I kicked her wheelchair rather violently, but that didn't wake her up either. Are you just pretending to be asleep? I grabbed her hair and pulled her head up, but even then the hag stayed silent with a straight face. Then I noticed something. I looked for an appropriate torture device. They were all large-scale, none of them being particularly handy. That's when I saw a cigarette lighter on the cushion of the tatami room. One of the relatives must have left it there. I lit the lighter. A huge flame appeared. I turned the lighter on and went back to the hag with it. Can you see it? Can you see it? This is a cigarette lighter somebody left behind. I lit it in front of her eyes. I'm going to burn your nose now. You don't want that, do you? I wouldn't want it. So why don't you quit pretending to be asleep? There was still no response. I put the flame right under her nose without hesitation. The tip of the flame touched the tip of her nose. The flame must have burned her nose hair. It smelled terrible. I was already certain, but I continued anyway. I brought the flame closer to her eye. Her eyelid didn't move one bit. The flame burned her eyelashes, making it smell awful again. I turned the lighter off and felt her throat and wrist. I didn't feel any warmth. I didn't feel a pulse either. Did she die from the stun gun? There's no way she could pretend to be asleep while being burned, even if she could endure the pain. Anyone would reflexively move their eyelids if a flame was close to their eyes, but she didn't. I turned the sink water on and aimed at the end of the hose at the hag's face. The water pressure wasn't too high, but squeezing out the tip of the nose, I could make it squirt out. The water hit the hag in the face, and there was still no reaction. Shit! You've got to be kidding me! She's dead. The one who was at the center of everything is dead now! I knew she wouldn't talk, but I didn't expect her to end up dead. I never even thought of killing her. I walked around the room restlessly. I didn't feel guilty, but instead felt frustrated with what I'd done. Come on, I need to calm down. What do I need to be afraid of? Calm down and stay cool. Calm down. Stay cool. I could feel my brain starting to calm down and my emotions cooling down with it. She was my true enemy. It's just I had killed her before confronting her about it. Sooner or later, I would have killed her anyway. She wouldn't have said anything in the first place, so there really wasn't a reason why I should have let her live. I didn't realize that until now, and that's why I got frustrated. My revenge for Satoshi started with the unexpected death of my grandmother. It's such a strange feeling, like I was wearing sopping wet clothes. I replaced that feeling with anger. I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't forgive the hag for abusing the Hojo family, including Satoshi. For so many years, she cornered him psychologically as well as physically. She didn't deserve an easy death from a stun gun. I picked up the whip that was hanging on the wall. The whip was designed to make sure the person on the receiving end got seriously injured. I swung it up and down. The sound reminded me of when I was a child hitting things with a jump rope I pretended was a whip. But unlike then, I made a purple mark on the hag's face, and a reddish-black blood started oozing out. I swung it up and down again. This time the whip hits her in the head. Her hair flew up in the air. I saw a bunch of her hair on the tip of the whip. At the end, the bunch of the hair, there was a piece of her skin. It seemed like the whip had ripped a part of her scalp off. I continued to hit her with the whip. I didn't bother removing the hair beforehand. The tip of the whip was divided into many points, with each having a fish hook on the end. Those hooks added to the speed of the whip. Not only scratched the victim, but tore their skin as well. The hag's hair was all messed up. Her face was getting bloody. She started to look like a real demon. I stopped the whipping, not because my arm was tired, but because I couldn't stand the feeling of her hair on the tip touching me every time I swung the whip. I threw the whip at the hag. Breathing heavily, I realized I was covered in her hair. It almost felt like thousands of maggots crawling all over me. I brushed it off violently. You deserve this, you fucking demon hag! I put my hands on my knees and exhaled roughly. It was then I noticed it. I perked up and turned around. There it is. The person who had been watching me since I snuck into the shrine storage. I sensed this person sitting in the tatami room. It enjoyed me torturing my grandmother. An overwhelming emotion started to swallow me up. I tried desperately not to feel it. How long have you been there? You should have said something. It was just there. Just like Satoshi, it was just there. It was extremely uncomfortable to just have it be there. I see. Rena told me. Are you Oyashiro? I smiled boldly, and yet I could feel my body shivering. You can't fool me. Are you saying that you're Oyashiro, that the curse of Oyashiro really does exist? Come on! Who would believe something like that, huh? It was just my imagination. It couldn't be the curse of Oyashiro. The curse couldn't be real. Everything was done by humans. They made everything look like it was a curse. Well, I don't care if you saw what I did. I won't charge you for it. But if you're thinking about interfering, I won't hold back, you know! No matter what I said, nothing happened. It was like trying to communicate with an insect. I felt like it was staring at a spider in the middle of its web, and the spider was staring back. I turned to the hag in the wheelchair. I couldn't leave her body here forever. If I don't need to make her death known, then it should be quick. It's best if a body doesn't exist. Not even in this secret underground torture room. I exhaled, trying to calm myself down. I remember now. When I was a little girl, Kasa used to love making me feel scared. He often told me scary stories about various horrible things. I recall a story about the secret torture room of the Sonozaki family. According to the story, there was a well in the torture room for dumping bodies in. There was a pile of tortured corpses at the bottom of the well, and resentful moans could be heard echoing from there. And about halfway down the well, there was a different tunnel, which was a secret passage leading into the distant mountains. That bit was from Mio's telling of the story. It was probably an amalgamation of tellings from different relatives. The room was supposed to be a huge secret, but everybody got loose lips at the chance to have fun scaring the young successor. Mio, do you remember one of our relatives talking about a hidden well a long time ago? There's supposed to be a hidden well somewhere in this underground torture room, and it's connected to a secret passage. Did you hear some noise earlier? That was me whipping the hag. Mio didn't reply, but I saw her bite her lip. Don't worry, I won't whip you. But if you don't cooperate, I might punish her some more. Next time I won't use a whip. Down at the end. Do you see a cell in the darkness? It's in there. Mio pointed weakly. I walked down to where her finger indicated. A light bulb lit the cell. It was a lot smaller than the one Mio was in. It was very shallow, and I didn't even need to open the door to see how tiny it was. Of course there's no well in here. I became angry, assuming that she lied to me, but after considering it, I didn't actually think she would at this point. I opened the door and walked in. I noticed something immediately. There was an opening right in the middle of the cell. This opening was naturally disguised. The way the rocks and the shadows were positioned perfectly hid the well. The tip of the rock inside the cell concealed the entrance. Unless you went in, you never noticed. But it's such a shallow cell that nobody would even think of going in. Besides, the bars allow you to see the inside well enough. The cell isn't even a few meters deep, so it would only take a glance to see everything. Nobody would think of unlocking the door and walking in, but walking in was the only way anyone would find the well. Furthermore, there were many cells in this huge cave. Who would think that one of them was hiding a secret well? The inside of the well was dark, and I couldn't see anything, but every little noise I made produced echoes. I could tell this was a very deep well. I brought a flashlight from the torture room and shone it down the well. It almost looked more like a vertical tunnel. Obviously a man-made one at that. There were wedges on the wall like a ladder, and they looked like they were inviting me to descend. It's kind of ironic the secret passage escape route from an underground torture room chamber ended up being a well that takes you down even further. You had no way of knowing whether it would take you to freedom or to hell. Furthermore, there were tortured bodies of the past in the bottom. Who would be able to go down this well without hesitation? Nobody in their right mind would go down this well to look for a secret tunnel hearing the voices of the dead all the while. Have you ever gone down that well, Mio? I've never even wanted to. I feel the same way. Why would I go down the well when they toss victims in this torture chamber? I went back to the torture room and then returned to the cave, pushing the wheelchair containing the hag. Mion screamed, Shion, are you going to push Granny down the well? No, I'm not. I'm just dumping her body. She's dead. Rest assured, I didn't torture her to death. It was probably the stun gun. Maybe her heart failed. I could just leave her body here, but I don't want it to rot, you know. How could you? Hey, do you want to take care of her now, even now that she's dead? Maybe you can use chopsticks to pick maggots off her body, huh? Mio covered her ears and shook her head. Everything I said seemed to bother Mion. Her own life wasn't guaranteed at this point. Shion, why did she do this? Let's see. What do you think? Nobody said anything for a while, but the silence was soon broken. Satoshi? Is this revenge? I don't know if it was really revenge since it happened so quickly. I'm sure she died without even feeling a thing. Hey, Mion. Now that I think about it, I did have a reason to kill the hag. Do you know what it was? It wasn't just because she killed Satoshi. It's because she lied! I slapped the hag's head. You said it too. You told me if I ripped out my nails, she would forgive everyone. That's why I ripped out 3 of my nails. I did what you told me to, right? But she didn't keep her promise. She made Satoshi disappear. Why? What was that for? I continued to slap the hag's head. Her blood was all over my hand by then, and it felt gross. I tried to wipe it off her clothes, but then her hair got on my hand. I ran to the sink in the torture room and washed my hands with a brush. When I was done, I went back to my own cell. After Satoshi disappeared, you came over and told me. You said the relationship between me and Satoshi was forgiven. You also said that the Sonosaki main house had nothing to do with Satoshi's disappearance. Yeah, You lied! 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 My shouts echoed throughout the cave. I was breathing heavily. I felt like I used up all the air in my lungs. I believe you don't know anything. You aren't even sure if the hag actually trusted you, but I don't know if she forgave Satoshi because of what I did. She wouldn't have told you the truth. The hag didn't keep her promise. She said she'd forgive everyone, but she lied. She didn't forgive Satoshi! Liar, 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 liar! Damn it! Give me back Satoshi! I want him back! I want him! I want him! I want him! I want him! I kicked the hag's leg repeatedly. Each time I kicked, the wheelchair made a squeaky noise. I ran out of breath and kneeled down. Mia was still covering her ears and was now shaking. There were tears in her eyes. Sorry to scare you. Sorry about that. If you really don't know, I won't torment you. Don't worry, but if you were ever lying to me, well, you'll have to accept whatever comes your way. You know what I mean? You received new tips. Alright, let's read them. Uh-oh. Well, Shion's not doing so good right now. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, notebook page 183. Let's go. I wasn't planning to kill the hag so quickly. I was going to kill her anyway, but it was too soon. People would have normally assumed the Sonozaki family operates as a hierarchy, but that's not true. It's actually more like a system of government. Several ministries stem from the main family, and each forms a hierarchy of its own. These ministries don't communicate with one another. The people who belong to a given ministry don't know what other ministries are doing. That way, the Sonozaki's family dealings are kept perfectly secret. Of course, the most important people in the family govern several ministries. They know, of course, about their own ministries, and they know a little about the ministries their relatives run, but none of them know everything. There are ministries that work in the open. There are ministries that work unseen, and there are some smaller ones that Ori runs herself. Mion seems to know most about them, but she doesn't necessarily know them all. In fact, she didn't even know about the curse. Considering the fact that Hag died before I can interrogate her is a huge loss. Notebook page 185. The head of the Kimiyoshi family was the one who called the main house most often after the 5th year's curse. My father called it the second most. My parents were still high in the hierarchy, but the stir around my mother's disownment still hung over us, so we got treated as outcasts. So the fact that my father received so many calls proved how much the hag valued us, despite the distance at which we were kept, demonstrating her two-faced respect for both sides of the coin. My father seems to be in charge of the intelligence bureau. He reported police information, gossip, and rumors going around the Yakuza business to the hag. He silences, stirs, and distorts that information at her request. By the way, my servant Kasai is an old friend of my father's. That must be why Kasai knows many things, but I don't know if my father's involved in the curse's execution. My assumption is that although he gathered information on the police investigation about the case, he wasn't involved in the execution itself. The fact that my father and the hag have this close connection isn't widely known. People know that she uses his information network, but they don't look very far beyond that. In the same way, it's possible that a curse execution team exists under the hag's direct control. People just aren't aware of it. Okay, so let's continue. I was having such a happy dream. Satoshi was in the dream. He was leading his normal, everyday life. He was back on the baseball team. Eri and I acted normally around him because we knew that's how mature people should act. We welcomed him back as if he had been with us the whole time. Although he hits well in practice sessions, he still doesn't do well in a real game. Come on, Satoshi! 3 strikes already! I'm cheering for you! And Satoshi pouted as he mumbled. I felt tears pouring down my face. Satoshi! Uh-oh. The happy dream faded out with my sobs. The harder I tried to focus on it, the faster it faded. Soon it was all gone. I could see the bright morning sun through a crack in the curtains. I was in Mion's room at the Sonozaki house. When did I come back? I was crouching in the corner of the room and crying. A dream is a dream. I wish I hadn't woken up, but one must wake up from a dream. We live in a world where there are no dreams, and that's why we always wake up. But I wasn't sure if I was the only one dreaming that dream, because I felt like Satoshi was right beside me. Satoshi? Did you come back? There was no reply. That was the rule. If it was Satoshi, I wish it'd smile at me just once. But Satoshi's presence faded away, as if he were never there to begin with. I heard the phone ring by the front door. That's right. I was the only one in the house now. I had to answer it. I got up to walk to the front door. I felt unsteady, so I put my hand on the wall to support myself. I hardly got any sleep. It was like I had a bad cold. The phone continued to ring. I probably didn't have to answer it, actually, but I was still half asleep, and all I could think of was answering the phone. Hello, Sonozaki residence. Sorry to call you so early. It's Kimiyoshi. Is your grandmother still sleeping? It was Uncle Kimiyoshi. She is, yes. I guess she's still tired from yesterday. I think I'll let her sleep in. Yeah, you probably should, Mio. You're going to school, right? Can I leave a message with you? Sure. What is it? Well, let's see. There'll be an emergency meeting regarding the incident from yesterday. It'll be at the Shrine's Assembly Hall, starting at 5 p.m. Did you get that? Yes. I'll give her the message. As soon as I put the phone down, it rang again. Hello, Sonozaki residence. Good morning, sorry to call you so early. Sorry. Good morning. Sorry to call you so early. This is Kasai. Is this Mion? Good morning. Kasai? Good morning. Is Shion still there? I wasn't panicked, but I hesitated. I could tell him no, or could I play both Mion and Shion? Shion was just washing her face just now. I'll go get her for you. I decided to play two parts. I went back and forth down the hallway and picked up the phone again. Kasai, good morning! Morning, Shion. Are you going to school today? Of course not. I feel miserable. I kind of expected that. By the way, how are you getting back to Okinomiya? I can have someone come pick you up. I think I can get a ride from Uncle Kimiyoshi or somebody else. Don't worry, I'll figure something out. Your father told me to make sure you go to school often enough. I appreciate your cooperation. I'll go when I feel like it. By the way, Kasai, did you hear? What about? You know the incident from last night? Yes, I have. How truly horrifying. All the past victims were war criminals from the dam conflict, right? But it's different this year. What do you think about that? I don't really know. Kasai wasn't the type to talk too much. If it was something complicated, he usually responded like that. Do you know why those two fell under the curse of Oyashiro? No. I heard this last night. Supposedly they snuck into the ritual storehouse during the festival. They used a metal wire or something and unlocked the door. Kasai went silent for a while. I held my breath while waiting to see how he responded. I expected him to say that he couldn't believe those people were just chosen as victims for sneaking to the storehouse. I expected him to say that it was just too unrealistic. I see. That was stupid of them. Since Tomidage was an outsider, I bet he didn't know. I went along with Kasai, but I felt disturbed on the inside. Kasai didn't wonder why breaking into the ritual storehouse wouldn't justify their deaths. I'd known Kasai for a long time, which is why I knew there'd be a heavy meaning to what he said. By the way, Kasai, actually, I did it too. Did you go in? Yeah. You went into the ritual storehouse, Shion? Yeah, Takano invited me. Takano, Tomitake, and remember Keiichi, who just moved here recently? Him and me to make 4 of us. I heard Kasai sighing heavily. Even though he didn't say a word, I could tell he was shocked. I'd never known him to act this way before. Shion, don't you remember what happened last year? How do you think you can take care of this? Last year was 3 now, so maybe 5 this year? Sorry, I wasn't trying to make light of the situation. I knew I shouldn't have done it. I regret it at least a little, but is it really that terrible a thing to do? You are related to the Sonozaki main family. Do you really think people would understand? But I've been living in Okinomiya all my life. Since the hag hated me, I've barely been to Hinamizawa. Besides, I was stuck at school. How would I know about any of that? I heard another sigh from Kasai. That sigh told me that my excuses would be useless. Shion, I am your ally. I want to support you as much as I can. But there are dangers even I can't protect you from. Besides, sorry, Sis is here. I gotta go. See ya! I interrupted Kasai and hung up. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear Kasai reject me. He who had been my ally all my life. Shit. Damn it. I could hear the sound of the cicadas. The sound made me feel like I was being cooked on a huge frying pan, making a sizzling noise. I couldn't help feeling remorseful, now that I knew sneaking into the ritual storehouse wasn't a laughing matter. But I really didn't know what to do at the time. Sure, the door was locked, so they didn't want anyone to go in. Then why did they change the lock? What did they say? I think it was Rika that said the previous lock was too heavy for her, so she had it changed to a cheap one. That was how Takano broke in. If the heavy lock was still there, this wouldn't have happened. I slapped my own forehead. I took a deep breath. I had to calm down. What was the point of fussing now? I'd already passed the point of no return. There was no use thinking otherwise. The hag was already dead. If she wasn't, she was now at the bottom of the well. Therefore, it was already past the point where I could just cut my fingers off in apology. I felt so unstable. I walked on the fence around the swings in the park before, as if I were walking on a tightrope. It was fun because even if I fell, it was only a very short distance. But it wouldn't have been very fun if I were up really high. At that very moment, I was in fact already on a tightrope that was a lot higher than the fence of the park. As soon as I took a step, the rope behind me would vanish. I couldn't step back because there was nothing behind me. That was, in short, the current situation I found myself in. Just standing in one spot was all I could do. Even if I never took another step, I'd fall if I wasn't careful. If I forced myself to walk, the danger would only increase. But if I didn't move, I would fall eventually. I couldn't see what was ahead of me. There was no guarantee that I'd ever find firm ground. But if I stopped, there was only one fate waiting for me. I have to move onward. If staying here guaranteed death, then I'd rather try to walk, even if I die as a result. If there's a dead end ahead of me, at least I tried my hardest. In general, I try to be optimistic. I could accept my life not lasting particularly long, but I wouldn't go easily. I'd struggle as much as possible. I already killed the hag. For that, there would be no other punishment than death. I knew my life would end soon. In other words, I was actually already dead. A dead person has nothing to lose. That means I can only go on the offensive. I clenched my fists tightly as I muttered. Even if I had to die, I couldn't die easily. This was my chance to avenge Satoshi. Who did it, for what purpose, and why? I was going to investigate. I was going to question. I was going to expose. Yes, I was going to settle the score. I'd carry out the plan I came up with yesterday. I could hide the hag's death somehow. All I have to say is that she hadn't been feeling well since Watanagashi. I could do it all while pretending to be Mion. Just in case her friends at school became suspicious, maybe I'd start telling them I hadn't been feeling well either. In fact, I did feel groggy from my lack of sleep. When I became Mion, Shion would automatically disappear. I'd already told Kasai I snuck into the shrine storage. He'd probably end up telling people that I was demoned away due to the curse of Oyashiro. The last person I'd have to think about is the fourth one, who snuck into the ritual storehouse, Maibara Keiichi. Maybe I can use him as bait to lure out the enemy. Sorry, Kei-chan. You're going to be my bait. I felt a little bad, since I was starting to like him. With all that figured out, let's go to school. I'd gone to school as Mio before, so I knew how things worked. It was almost time to leave the house. Michan! You're late! You waited! You could have just gone ahead. Hey, Mio, your face is red. You're breathing heavily, too. Michan, are you not feeling well? Rena put her hand on my forehead. Rena, your hand's pretty cold. Michan, you're a little bit warm. It's no big deal. Give it half a day and I'll be fit as a fiddle. Are you really okay? You don't have to push yourself, you know. What's this, Kei-chan? Are you worried about me? That's nice of you. I always thought he was a goofball, so I was a little surprised. I thought they would tease me, but they didn't. I just think you shouldn't push yourself so hard. We can tell the teacher if you had to take a day off. I'm fine. I took some medicine. I think it's already working. Okay, then let's go. Don't overdo it, but of course there's the time. When we need a runner, we won't make it. This might get pretty thrilling. Maybe it's just what I need to shake off this sluggishness. Let's run! Precedent, if you would. Everybody stand up! At attention! I made the same mistake before. I never learn, do I? You think Michan is doing okay? She doesn't look good. Oh, really? How unfortunate. It was a good idea to make them to believe I was sick. Even if I did things differently from Mio and I had an excuse. Well, you know, girls have those days when they just don't feel well. I don't have those days, Nipa. Mion's friends kept each other occupied and left me alone. Maibara Keiichi. He might suddenly disappear one day. I couldn't let that happen. That'd be like letting a fish take the bait and swim away while I was fast asleep with a fishing pole in my hands. I couldn't miss the moment the enemy took a bite out of Keiichi. I had to be very careful, but it was impossible to keep my eyes on him 24 hours a day. Spying on him at school like this wasn't good enough. Should I have him meet with Shion and let her explain that he's in danger? Maybe we could set up a strategy together. I didn't think Keiichi realized how serious a crime it was to step into the ritual storehouse. I hadn't, after all. Since last year, all the incidents related to this curse had probably been investigated in secret. people involved with the three families wouldn't know about the incident from last night, but Keiichi shouldn't know anything. If he knew where he stood now, he'd be more cautious too. That should make him aware of his surroundings. Maybe he would notice if anything odd took place. The teacher caught him sleeping, so she ordered him to go wash his face. He walked out in the hallway. I was sleepy too. I had to be alert, but I couldn't clear my mind due to my lack of sleep. I decided to go home early, since I'd been pretending to be sick most of the morning. My request was approved. As I exited the building, I saw Keiichi watching his face. I thought you'd be out here. It feels better outside, huh? Mion. No cutting class now. It looked like felt refreshed for him to wash his face with cold water. I washed my face too, but it didn't feel as good as it looked. Mion, how's your cold doing? You're sleepy because of the medicine, not from lack of sleep, yeah? Actually, this is a secret, but after the festival yesterday, I got wrapped up in the party my relatives were having, and well, I had a bit. I pretended to drink with my invisible glass. Are you hungover? How old are you? Keiichi exaggerated his reaction, but he seemed worried. Okay, later, I'm going back. Be careful on your way home. Don't wobble into a sewer or a brook, got it? Keiichi turned around to go back to the classroom. Oh, one more thing. Kei-chan. I stopped Keiichi. He, in response, turned around. What's up? This may sound weird, but don't think too hard about it. Well, depends on what it is. Last night near the end of the festival, did you see Tomitake or Takano anywhere? I noticed Keiichi's body tense up. His reaction proved he felt guilty about sneaking into the ritual storehouse. He was frightened that Sonozaki Mion might know about it. I guess this was enough to give him a certain impression of Sonozaki Mion. You know Tomitake and Takano, don't you? You remember, Kei-chan, when the four of you were talking during the setup the day before? I could clearly see how this made Keiichi felt. He was trying to come up with an excuse. I can't remember. I might have seen them, or not. He was both a bad liar and a bad actor. He wasn't really that intelligent at all. Well, that would make him a suitable friend for Mion. He was just a brat, unlike Satoshi. Although when it came to lying and acting, Satoshi was about the same level. Maybe Keiichi should be credited for at least trying to tell a lie. Satoshi wouldn't have even said a thing. I didn't need to be thinking about him right now. I see. Then one more question. On the same night, did you see Shion? This was a very mean question. Keiichi was perplexed as I expected. Didn't you ask me that yesterday? I think you told me that I wasn't sure if I had or not. I asked him that yesterday? He must have meant that for Sonozaki Mion asked him that question. In other words, she asked him after he had left the storehouse and got back together with his friends. Damn you, Mion. When I asked her, she said she had no idea we went into the ritual storehouse. Shit. Did you? I guess I just thought I'd get a different answer if I asked you again. Why are you so intent on knowing if I did or not? He was getting defensive. Keiichi couldn't hide his panic as he flared up at me. It's not important. It's just that there are some people who are speaking poorly of Tomitake, Takano, Shion, and you, Kei-chan. I didn't really hear what they were saying, though. Keiichi was really perplexed now. This wasn't fun at all, but it still could be. An interesting game. I don't believe that you were doing something bad. I just wanted to ask a bit about it, so I did. Sorry for making you uncomfortable, okay? I made sure Keiichi felt a sense of crisis and left. Nobody can tell us apart. We're Mion and Shion, perfect twins. Notebook page 186. Oh. When I returned to the Sonozaki house, I saw a woman with an apron on. It was the housekeeper. Her name was Shimiko. The hag had a few housekeepers who took care of the chores around the house. Mion, I'm glad you're here. Hey, Shimiko, can I help you? Today was her turn to come out to help out the house. She arrived, but the gate was locked, and she couldn't get in. She'd called, but there was no answer, so she had been just standing there not knowing what to do. Something must have happened to Granny at the festival. She's been in an evil mood ever since the last night. I see. Shimi would try to remember if she'd done something wrong. She isn't ignoring you. She's just sleeping. She was up very late. I bet she can't wake up yet. You know how she is, right? Once she gets into this mood, it'll take long for her to be happy again. Yes, that's too bad. I think it might be better that you don't show up for a while. Even if you don't mean to upset her, Granny might take it the wrong way. Just let me take care of it. I see. Are you sure? I'm very grateful, though. Sorry to make you do this, but could you let the other housekeepers know that they don't need to come for a while either? When Granny feels better, I'll give you a call. So, let's just leave her alone for now. Shimiko bowed and left on her bicycle. Anyone who would ever experience Granny's wrath would understand. I headed into Mion's room, set her alarm clock for 2 p.m. and crawled into her bed. I needed to recover quickly. I had to be sharp, calm, and cool-headed. School should be out by 2 p.m. Maybe I'd get in touch with Keiichi. I'd have to call him. There'd also be a staff meeting at the Furude Shrine Assembly Hall in the evening. All the leaders of the 3 families, their relatives, and the town council members would gather at this meeting. They were all authority figures in Hinamizawa. I'd been tending in the place of the hag who was sick. I'd worry about the rest when I got there. People should notice that Mion and the hag were missing for a long time. I didn't need to worry, as I had plenty of time. I checked the alarm once more, then fell asleep, as if someone had switched me off. Hello? This is Sunazaki. Well, the younger one. Hello? Do you have time to talk right now? Shion, I thought you'd be sleeping in today with a hangover, same as Mion. What? My sister had a hangover? That's so like her! Keiichi had no idea that the Mion he saw earlier was actually me. He didn't notice when we talked in person, so there's no way he'd notice on the phone. I never knew that playing 2 rules could be so fun. To feel such enjoyment in this game of life or death. Maybe I was getting used to the situation, or maybe my senses had gone numb. Oops. Sorry, my parents are waiting for an important call, so I can't talk for too long. What do you need? There's something I wanted to talk about, but if we can't talk long, I guess that's that. Then how about we meet in person? If you could show me where the library is too, that'd be great. You mean the public library near the station? Yes, that's fine. I go past there on my way to work anyway. We decided to meet in Okinomiya. It wasn't easy to get there from Hinamizawa, but I had to hurry. I couldn't run into Keiichi as he was heading there himself. I recalled the key to the hag motorcycle was in her secret drawer. That hag usually got driven around for public events, but when she had her own errands, she rode her motorcycle. Keiichi, as I assumed, was going to ride his bicycle. I'd try to get to Okinomiya before he did. Keiichi arrived quite a bit later than me. Motorcycles are faster after all. There aren't hardly any traffic lights to worry about on the way here either. Mion's grandma owns a motorcycle. Wow, Mion never keeps her appointments. I mean, honestly. Making my sister the stand for everything will get you in trouble. You're a little unsteady. You were drinking last night too, weren't you? Don't try to hide it. You definitely went home early. Oh, too bad. I've been at home all day from the beginning. I'm smarter than my sis after all. Hey now, I don't think you could call playing hooky smarter. You should finish your errand first. We don't have that much time. We're going to the library, right? Yeah, thanks. My mom had to return some books by today. Is the library far? No, it's right nearby. I meant it when I said we didn't have much time. I had to hurry a little. I was just going to talk to him on the phone, but I ended up coming all the way to Okinomiya. After our talk, Keiichi would slowly head back to Hinamizawa on his bicycle. I'd have to rush back while making sure I didn't run into him. Otherwise, I wouldn't make it on time for the meeting. Maybe I could be a little late, but since I needed to hear everything they were going to discuss, I didn't want to be. This was the Shishibone Public Library. It was sizable, filled with a collection of moldy, smelly books, but they did have air conditioning and it was quiet. It was a perfect place for when you wanted to be alone. After Satoshi disappeared last year, I came here a lot to think about various things. This was where I first met Takano. I didn't want to run into her with Keiichi and Tao, but when I remembered she was already dead. The first floor of the building was occupied by government offices. The library itself is on the 2nd floor, so we had to walk up a huge staircase to get up there. I tasted cool air on my skin as soon as I walked through the automated door. Unlike outside, it was very quiet in here. The room temperature was both comfortable and suitable for books. I could smell the scent of old pages. All libraries smell the same. Keiichi walked up to the return table after he said so. Because it was a weekday, there was hardly anyone around. It really was very quiet. I was going to chat about some ordinary things and move on to the main subject. After Keiichi returned the books, I invited him to the intersection of the library. Keiichi knew Mion well, but he didn't know me at all. He showed an interest in our life story. This is exactly where Takano told me about the true history of Hinamizawa a year ago. I was about to tell Keiichi about the things that were very similar to that. Did God have a sense of irony? Now that you mention it, that toy store looked like it was managed by relatives as well. Does that mean they operate Angel Mart too? I told him the reason why the Sonozaki family was so powerful in this area. I assumed that Keiichi came from the city. There's a good chance he wouldn't even begin to understand how one old family could literally control an entire area. Unless I explained to him how powerful the Sonozaki family was, he wouldn't understand what kind of danger was barreling toward him. The family is particularly strong in finance and real estate. Even a lot of members of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry either have the last name Sonozaki or are their relatives. There are Sonozakis in the City Council and the Prefectural Assembly too, since they have the Okinomiya area giving them strong electoral support. Wait a minute, this is all escalating pretty quickly. Your relatives operate shops in downtown Okinomiya, and they're especially strong in finance and real estate? On top of that, a lot of people in the Chamber of Commerce and Industry are relatives, and there's even some elected to local offices? Keiichi counted with his fingers. He was clearly surprised to hear all about the Sonozaki family. It seemed he was flexible enough to accept even something that sounded outrageous to him. He was starting to understand things, although slowly. The way he viewed Sonozaki Shion was changing little by little too. That should be enough background information. Now I could go explain about Sonozaki Mio, the successor. Then I'd change the subject, like Takano did with me. I'd go on to talk about the curse of Oyashiro and the serious and mysterious deaths. So then, the Sonozaki family, it's pretty famous in this area. Yep, crazy, isn't it? Somebody cut into our conversation. Oishi. Why was he here? Hello, good afternoon. Are you on a date today? What I'd give to be young again. If you thought you were on a date, then why are you bothering us, Oishi? What timing. It couldn't be a coincidence. I knew this man too well. He was crafty, sly, and clever. His presence here can't just be a coincidence. Did he see us somewhere in town and follow us? But why? Did he need something from me, Keiichi, or perhaps the both of us? From what I could guess, I didn't think it was me that he wanted something from. It was almost like he was trying to keep Keiichi away from me. Oishi was aware I gave false testimony to protect Satoshi last year. Maybe he didn't think he could talk to Keiichi if I was around. Why did Oishi need to talk to Keiichi? It must be about the incident from yesterday. I'm sure there's plenty of plainclothes officers at the festival, so they had seen who was with the victims. In other words, Keiichi and me. But Oishi knew I was hard to deal with. That was why he was focusing on Keiichi at the present. Why did he have to show up at a time like this? My bro, right? You're the one tough guy. Two-time the Sonozaki sisters, are you? No, I'm not two-timing anyone. Keiichi looked at me, hoping for assistance. He blushed. The way he panicked reminded me of Satoshi. That aside, this wasn't going well. Oishi might even start asking about my relationship with Satoshi. I didn't want him to, nor did I want Keiichi to have any preconceptions. Oishi took a quick glance at me. His eyes told me something. He was purposely talking about things I'd rather not talk about. He was basically telling me to leave or he'd continue on to something that was worse than what they were currently talking about. He didn't use his words, but his eyes clearly communicated that anyway. Damn that weasel. I'm sorry, Kei-chan. I really need to go to my job. Huh? Oh, you do? I realized I couldn't achieve anything like this if I stayed longer. I used my part-time job as an excuse to leave. Oishi looked at me and grinned. Damn it. He won today, but I'll win next time. Wait, didn't you have something to talk about today, Shion? Yep, I'll see you later. Oh, I'll give you a call after I'm done. It'll be okay to call at night, right? Yeah, probably okay. Then I'll talk to you later tonight. Bye! Oof. I think I forgot my Keiichi voice, bro. The hack's motorcycle had become my primary means of transportation. My next stop was at the staff meeting at the Furude Shrine's Assembly Hall. It's easy to imagine how a normal meeting would play out if it was just celebrating the end of Watanagashi, but today's staff meeting was likely going to be strained as the Sonozaki family councils. Yes, the staff meeting was going to deal with the heart of Hinamizawa. I couldn't let my guard down even for a moment. I rested for a while at the house and left for the meeting. I walked up the long stairs to the Furude Shrine. At the top, I saw some elderly men smoking in front of the hall. Since they had a minor fire a long time ago, it had been made into a non-smoking area. Is that Mion? The head of the Kimiyoshi family, Uncle Kimiyoshi, noticed me and waved. He must not have expected Mion to come alone. Normally, it would have been either the hag by herself or Mion tagging along as an assistant. Granny's been in a terrible mood since the incident of last night. She's been staying in bed and won't even let me get near her. They all understood how troublesome she was when she was in a bad mood. They smiled bitterly in sympathy. So, you're here from the Sonozaki family representative, then. Has Oreo told you anything? Sort of. What did he mean, has Oreo told you anything? That line by itself didn't really explain much. The staff meeting was usually held by the mayor, the head of the Kimiyoshi family. He asked me as a substitute for the Sonozaki family head if I heard anything from her. Then I realized who was supposed to lead today's staff meeting. Uncle, no, Kimiyoshi. Do I really have to lead the meeting today? According to the ranking order of the family councils, any substitute for the Sonozaki family head is above the Kimiyoshi family head. In other words, I had to lead today's meeting. There was no way I could do that. Don't worry, I'll do it. You can just take a seat, Mion. If there's anything you heard from Oreo, let us know, okay? Kimiyoshi, why don't you get started? Everyone's here now. The smokers put out their cigarettes and went back into the hall. The tables were set in the horseshoe shape, and I was told to sit near the chair reserved for the chief. The seat opposite mine was empty. Considering its location, it was probably for the Furude family head, Rika Furude. But somebody had said earlier that everybody was already here. Either Rika had called an absent, or the empty seat was just a formality. Knowing the subject of this meeting, I don't think the Furude family head would even want to attend. Even if Rika actually attended, she wouldn't be able to say anything. All she usually do at the Sonozaki family councils is draw pictures on a notepad. She'd probably end up drawing pictures in this meeting too. Besides, they probably didn't want her to hear anything unpleasant. In this way, the empty Furude family seat was easily explained. When everyone was seated, the head of the Women's Association served tea. She gave me an evil look, trying to tell me to help out. I got up and did so. After that, everyone fell quiet, and the secretary stood up. Everyone, thank you for coming today on such a short notice despite your busy schedules. Let's start from a few words from the mayor. Go ahead, please. Excuse me for saying this. Seated. Ken-chan, you stay seated too. Thank you all for coming today. Also, you all did a great job at Watanagashi yesterday. The festival was a great success as usual. There weren't any mishaps. Lots of villagers came, and I believe it went great on the whole. Let me see. How many people was it? According to the Imperial General Headquarters report, approximately 5,000 people showed up. Everybody laughed except me. I hope we continue to work together to carry on this tradition. I appreciate your cooperation. An applause with only 8 people doesn't sound so great. Okay, let's move on to today's proceedings. Kimiyoshi will lead the meeting today. Please applaud if you approve. Thank you. Then with your approval, Mayor Kimiyoshi will take over. Please go ahead. Thank you. Let's start now. Sorry, could you please close the curtains? Everyone closed the curtains nearest to them. The sun was still up. With all the curtains closed, the room became very dark. The village chief explained the details of the incident as well as what went on with the police. A police vehicle discovered Tomitake's body on... Okay, yes. We're gonna skip that, we know that. As a result, they found... Okay, yes, we know that. When he finished, there was dead silence. I watched to see who would speak first. Nobody said a thing. Then I noticed Kimiyoshi looking at me. This is where the head of the Sonozaki family would speak. Mio, has Oreo said anything about this whole thing? Everyone looked in my direction. I was sure they could see the hag in me. I'm Sonozaki Mion, acting as the head of the Sonozaki family. I'm here in place of Oreo, the current head. Thank you for having me. I became Mion. I tried to become as cold and as feeling as the Mion I witnessed a year ago. That cold version of Mion was inside of me. That was me. I was her. Unfortunately, the curse of Oyashiro has come to pass for a 5th time. This is deeply regretful. Everyone was held captive by my words. I wasn't a little girl anymore. The hag was speaking through my mouth. They all heard me and trembled in fear. Does anyone know why the curse happened again this year? After my question, everyone whispered to each other. I will tell you. It was because they broke the rule of the ritual storehouse and desecrated the sacred ground within. How dare they! A few elderly men got up and yelled. The fools! I can't believe this! They deserve to be killed! Oyashiro, please calm your anger. Oh my, how did that happen? Oyashiro, this is why we hate outsiders! They just don't think. They're just too stupid. They've got what they deserve. It was their own fault. The angry old men yelled, even as they trembled in fear. Their sudden change scared me more than a little. Even Uncle Kimiyoshi, who usually so gentle and sweet, became like a demon of war, cursing those who broke the rule of the ritual storehouse. It became like a raging ocean inside the assembly hall. Their yells spun around like a whirlpool. They roared, crashed, and howled. Even while doing nothing but watch, I could feel myself turning pale. Mion threatened me yesterday, and Kasa had been shocked this morning. What I saw before me was similar to that. Even the sweet Uncle Gentle Kimiyoshi was saying that they deserved to die. I was fearful of the sudden change in those elderly men. More than anything, the fact that they all believed that those people deserved to die for trespassing is what terrified me. It wasn't just that, of course. The real thing I was scared of was that I was one of the people they wanted dead. In other words, it was almost like they were telling me to die of the curse. If they were to find out I snuck into the ritual storehouse, it was very possible they would strangle me on the spot. Actually, they might not kill me that easily. By then I was certain. The people in this room were true believers in Oyashiro, just like the hag. They wouldn't hesitate to murder whoever made Oyashiro angry on his behalf. Even if they didn't carry out the killings themselves, they would pretend they didn't see anything. Yes, not even if my head was cut off right in the middle of them. Everyone here would act in collision and say I'd never attended today. If they all testified that they waited I didn't show, I'd be demoned away. It'd be far too easy for them to erase someone and have them disappear. There was no mistake. The people linking the hag and the curse were definitely here at the meeting. I continued speaking. I was Sonozaki Mion. I was on the side responsible for the curse. Therefore, at the moment, I didn't need to worry about anything. Nobody could tell the difference between Mion and me. That's what would keep me safe. Please, be silent. Hey, quiet down! Uncle Kimiyoshi helped me to quiet everyone, but his tone was violent. He really scared me. Everyone gradually became silent. In fact, it was 4 people who snuck into the storehouse. 2 more remained. People once more became restless upon hearing that, but Uncle Kimiyoshi yelled at them again and they settled down. Tomitake and Takano were old enough to be made responsible for their own poor judgment. As a result, the curse of Oyashiro fell upon them immediately, but the other 2 were simply children. The curse is yet to fall upon them, but there will be some kind of punishment. Everyone stayed quiet that time. They'd all turned genuinely pale, trying not to miss a word I said. After all, they were all thinking the kids I mentioned would be their own relatives or even grandchildren. They wanted to know who they were to put their minds at ease. The other 2 who snuck into the ritual storehouse were Sonozaki Shion and Maibara Keiichi. I could feel the air getting drier. It was so dry it almost felt like it was going to start a crackling noise. Sonozaki Shion has already. I couldn't even hear the old people breathe. I took a peek at Uncle Kimiyoshi, who was sitting next to me. He adored Shion as if she were his own granddaughter, but if she had been demoned away, I wanted to see how distressed and sad he looked. And when I saw his face, I felt a sensation on my back as if my skin itself was making a cracking noise. He didn't even have an expression on his face. Uncle Kimiyoshi adored me. I loved him and I thought he loved me too. That's why I expected him to be sad after learning that I met with such a cruel fate. What was I thinking? The memory of his warm smile shattered inside of me. There was no way of describing the fear I experienced in that moment. In mere words, he suddenly changed into someone I didn't even recognize. Uncle Kimiyoshi noticed me looking at him and spoke. What about Maibara Keiichi? Not yet. I had to take a deep breath to regain my composure. All 4 who snuck into the ritual storehouse will suffer the curse of Oyashiro. Maibara Keiichi is of no exception. Chilling looks, cruel looks, emotional looks, shrewd looks, and looks of people who were about to snap. I could feel the demons chewing my words while they stared at me with their sharp eyes. I could see some of them picking their snake-like tongues in and out. I could see flames in some of their eyes. They were memorizing the names of the intruder the curse had yet to fall upon. And so the meeting went on. We were told not to tell the police too much, to report what they asked us, and to hold another meeting whenever something significant happened. If something unexpected took place, we were to get in touch with either the head of the Kimiyoshi family or the head of the Sonozaki family for instructions of what to do. With those closing remarks, the meeting was over. It was already getting dark outside. Being in a valley surrounded by mountains, once the sun went down Hinamizawa, it got dark quickly. Even if it was hot during the day, it cooled down quickly at night. The elderly people said goodbye to each other and left on their bicycles, on their motorcycles, or in their cars. Uncle Kimiyoshi waved goodbye to them and started to head home himself. I called out to him. Kimiyoshi, do you have any plans after this? I called him Kimiyoshi instead of Uncle Kimiyoshi. He stopped. No, I don't have anything planned. Can you stop by my house? Does Oreo want to see me? Yes, she wants to talk to you about something in person. Okay, I'll stop by. Uncle Kimiyoshi arrived at the Sonozaki family house. He often came to the house to have secret meetings with the hag, so he wasn't suspicious at all. I invited Uncle Kimiyoshi to the living room. I served him a cup of tea and told him I was going to fetch the hag. I left the room and killed some time down the hallway. Granny will be here as she gets dressed. She might take a little while. Oh, that's okay. I'll just wait. Uncle Kimiyoshi relaxed as he sipped his cup of tea. I sat next to him. I think she wants to talk to you about Shion. I mentioned my name and watched for his reaction. Uncle Kimiyoshi looked so grim. I couldn't tell if he heard me. I decided to continue speaking until he reacted in some way. You remember the incident from last year with Shion, yes? She became friendly with the people of the Hojo family. She was forgiven after ripping her nails out, wasn't she? Yes, 3 nails. Uncle Kimiyoshi folded his arms and thought for a while. Where is Shion now? In the basement. How is she doing? Uncle Kimiyoshi sounded worried. When I heard that, I felt relieved that Uncle Kimiyoshi was on my side. His anger in the assembly hall was just an act. She has been crying. Mion, tell me, what is Oreo going to do with Shion? She hasn't told me any details. As you know, Granny becomes awfully quiet when she's truly furious. Going into the ritual storehouse, huh? Furthermore, it's her own granddaughter. That's a tough decision to make. Uncle Kimiyoshi thought the hag must be unsure of what to do with Shion. What do you think will happen to Shion? Well, I'm sure it'll be far more than just the 3 nails this time, knowing how Oreo is. She won't hold back just because it's her granddaughter. Actually, she might be even more harsh, especially because they're related. Yes, she did go into the ritual storehouse. That's not something that can be forgiven so easily. Indeed, it's sacred after all. But in a way, maybe it's not fair to Shion. She's been away from Hinamizawa, as you know. I'm sure she knew she wasn't supposed to trespass in the ritual storehouse, but maybe she didn't know how forbidden it was. Yeah, that's true. Poor Shion. Other than the tattoo on my back, how would you tell the difference between Shion and me? There isn't one. There's no point in distinguishing between Mion and Shion in the first place. Twins are proof of bad luck. One should be eliminated as soon as they're born. Such is the family precept. The hag actually put her hands around my neck right after I came out of the womb. That's how the story went, at least. In the end, the hag didn't kill me, but instead pretended I didn't exist. She forced herself to call one of us Mion, and the other Shion. She adored Mion and hated Shion. My sister and I never understood why we had to go through that. We didn't care who was Mion or Shion. So one day we came up with an idea. We decided to share the joy Mion experienced and the sadness Shion experienced. We often switched places. We were both Mion. At the same time, we were both Shion. Adults around us tried to put on different clothes on us or style our hair differently so they could tell us apart. That was nonsense. No matter what they did to us, all we had to do was switch places, and nobody could tell us apart. Finally, they decided that we switched places because we were always together. On that day, Shion got to go to an amusement park. Since then, we've been separated. Mion. I can't even imagine what will happen to Shion. Whatever it is Granny decides to do, I'm not in a position to say anything about it. She doesn't listen to her relatives. You're right. That's something that Oreo needs to work on. If Shion wasn't Sonozaki Shion, she would have been dead a long time ago. I can't even begin to imagine what kind of punishment might be equal to death. Even if she isn't killed, she'll probably never see the light of day again. In other words, she'll be demoned away. Mion, does Shion regret what she's done? Yes. In response, Uncle Kimiyoshi tapped my shoulder and slapped his own chest. He smiled reliably. Don't worry, if Shion feels bad about what she's done, she won't be demoned away. Leave it to me. Really? I'm sure Rory will be furious to hear me say anything, but I won't give up. I'll explain to her that Shion regrets what she's done, and I'll beg for her forgiveness. Tears began to fall from my eyes. I knew it. Uncle Kimiyoshi was my ally after all. He said he would forgive Shion. He was my ally. I was so very happy. Are you sure? Are you sure she won't be demoned away like Hojo Satoshi was last year? Uncle Kimiyoshi smiled reliably again and told me. He was a brat of the Hojo family. This is Shion of the Sonozaki family we're talking about here. Of course she'll be forgiven. Huh? A brat of the Hojo family? Are you talking about Satoshi? Last year's victim. Those Hojo people. They're traitors who tried to sell out the whole village. Of course he got demoned away. He was a Hojo after all. Huh? 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 The Hojo people should all be cursed. Only people like him get demoned away. Shion will be okay. It won't happen to someone like her. Uncle, didn't Shion take care of that for Satoshi last year? Wasn't he supposed to be forgiven? Take care of that? What do you mean? Remember? 3 nails. She removed 3 of her nails. Kasai, Uncle Yoshiro, and then Satoshi. 3 people. She removed 3 nails for 3 people. So that was why it was 3 nails, huh? Huh? What? Wasn't that the significance of the 3 nails? Yeah, you're right. There were 3 people involved, hence the 3 nails. I heard that too, but what? Kasai, Yoshiro, and Shion. That makes 3. What? 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 I endured excruciating pain. The first one was my left pinky, then the ring finger, and then the middle finger. People held me down so I couldn't move, but I endured. I had to endure 3 nails. I didn't know which nail was for Satoshi, and my middle finger was for Satoshi. I endured until the pain until the middle finger was done so Satoshi would be forgiven. That's why I endured. Even Mio said afterwards everything was forgiven. Mion, didn't you say Satoshi was forgiven? Didn't you? That's what I heard. I think that's what I heard. Did I? I felt the air move. There shouldn't have been a breeze in that room, but I felt it anyway. The cool air stroked the back of my neck. That was when my true self stood right behind me and nodded. Although there was no wind, my hair billowed. The burning wickedness buried deep inside my eyes became visible. Why do you think Hojo Satoshi got demoned away? Satoshi's parents did, in fact, try to sell out the village. They deserved the curse of Oyashiro, but Satoshi was simply their son. What has he done? Mion, I'm asking you what kind of crime Satoshi committed. You said earlier he deserved to be demoned away because he was born in the Hojo family. What has he done to deserve to be demoned away? Kimiyoshi didn't know what to say to the sudden question. He seemed dismayed. I didn't hear her say it, but I know it was Sonozaki Orio's decision. She decided that the curse of Oyashiro would fall upon all the Hojos. Oops. Wait. Oops. I messed up. I'm so sorry. I didn't hear her say it, but I know. It was Sonozaki Orio's decision. She decided the curse of Oyashiro would fall upon all the Hojos. Wait, Mion, that's not true. Didn't she decide that? No, she didn't. The curse of Oyashiro fall upon the Hojo family. I do remember talking about something like that, but we never decided that. Nobody did. Then why did you say? Because he was one of the Hojos earlier. Sorry, Mion. That was... I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. That's just it. Anything that happens to the Hojo family is a curse. As long as someone has the Hojo name, nobody cares what happens to that person. That idea spread like a virus among all the villagers. It didn't matter if Satoshi did anything or not because he was a Hojo. He was filthy. That infection of that idea is the entire problem. And you all believed in that idea. You couldn't even think straight anymore. I can't forgive you. I can't let someone like you exist. People like you cornered Satoshi and his family. Poor Satoshi. What has he done? He hasn't done anything. He was a Hojo, that's all. What kind of a crime is that? Why did the curse fall upon him? What kind of crime has he committed? Kimiyoshi's upper body went backward and fell onto the floor. That was that. I put my stun gun back in my pocket. I made a big fuck up. Fuck. I got too emotionally affected and I fucked up. Sorry, Shion. What was that you just said? Apparently Takano and Tomitake died last night. Takano was found burned to death. Tomitake was, well, I found it this morning. I heard my father talking to a relative on the phone about it. As I thought, Keiichi didn't know what happened after the festival last night. Okay. Keiichi insisted that unless he heard about it on the news, it couldn't be real. But the investigations into the series of mysterious deaths are done in secret now. Of course he didn't hear about it in the news. Okay. Yes. And then the secrecy thing. Okay, we know that. Excuse me. Okay. And then... Kei-chan, remember how I said that the villagers could be the ones carrying out Oyashiro's curse? That's what I mean. At some point, a tradition was created here in Hinamizawa, where every year you're allowed to kill someone on the night of Watanagashi. Yes, that's the truth about the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa, also known as Oyashiro's curse. On the day of Watanagashi, 2 people will be killed. The perpetrators are using the curse of Oyashiro as an excuse to kill one victim and make another disappear. That's why the curse of Oyashiro takes place. That's what happens in Hinamizawa, and that's what happens with the curse. What Kimiyoshi said is all true. Infecting everyone with the idea that the enemy from the dam conflict deserved to die was the root of all this. This is a system of vague commands used in the Sonozaki family, created by its head Oryo. One thing that must be mentioned about the command system is the person giving the orders and the one executing them didn't need to interact in any way. Although Oryo was the commander, she never gave actual orders. She had only expected something to happen. Every single one of the family council members around her would want to satisfy that expectation and give them the chance. They didn't have to be proactive about satisfying it. They could be passive too. But when the chance arose, anyone who knew Orio's intention would potentially become the one to execute her orders. Therefore, Oreo would never know who actually executed her order, and none of the relatives knew either. But they all knew things would conclude just as Oreo wanted, and they could assume it was one of their own who did it for her. This passive support system was thoroughly effective. It spread all over the village. Its ties became even tighter after the dam conflict. Anyone could be the one to execute Orio's orders. Therefore, everyone supported each other. If somebody did something, the others would try to satisfy Orio's expectation in different ways. For example, they'd come up with false evidence or otherwise passively interfere with an investigation. Even if they didn't know exactly who they were protecting, they'd still work together to protect whoever it was. Yes, I'd finally figured out how it all worked. Phased in a more organized manner, it would go as follows. The system of killing 2 people who are unwanted by the village each year required 3 elements. The first element was a region of solidarity. It was created during the long and unique history of Hinamizawa. The villagers' bonds became tighter during the dam conflict. That was one of the conditions for this place to have a curse. It is an element that was already placed in the region, not one that could be created. The next element was having the same moral standards. This is a very important element, as the curse wouldn't have happened without it. Also, this element was created by Sonozaki Oryo herself, and that's why she could claim that this system was established by her own will. Having the same moral standards means that everyone everywhere acknowledges the same enemy. Even when everyone in the village joined together, it'd be meaningless if they didn't all know exactly who the enemy was. During the dam conflict, Sonozaki Oryo made the identity of the enemy very clear to everyone. They couldn't just say that they were against the dam construction and the government was their enemy. That wasn't clear enough. The government didn't really pinpoint who the enemy was, but Oryo made enemies out of the construction site itself, and therefore its manager. She chose targets that the villagers would see with their own eyes. They were clear and easy to understand. The villagers acknowledged that everyone at the dam construction site was their enemy, and the construction site manager was the enemy commander. Using the same method, she labeled one after another as an enemy of the village, practically cataloging a list of enemies to print into the villagers' minds. Earlier, I had used the term infecting for this phenomenon. Those infected by this idea were the people unconsciously giving the orders to commit murder. When the infection spread across the village, all of Hinamizawa's residents acknowledged the same enemy. That's when Hinamizawa itself became a murderer. Oryo combined those 2 elements, a solitary region having the same moral standards, and selected the enemy and spread that notion throughout the village. The law would normally have punished both the one who committed the crime and the one who gave the order, but Oryo's system didn't require an order at all. Oryo had just become concerned about the enemy she had pre-selected, but that alone wouldn't cause the curse to take place. Oryo's concern was the safety device. Even the safety device was off, the curse wouldn't occur unless there was a finger to pull the trigger. The last necessary element was to set a date for execution, the night of Watanagashi, the night to venerate Oyashiro, the guardian deity of Hinamizawa. On the night the curse of Oyashiro falls upon 2 enemies of the village and they disappear, everyone in the village acknowledged that as a fact. In other words, if the same incident took place on any other of the 364 nights of the year, it would be nothing than a murder case. But if it happened on the night of Watanagashi, it transformed into the curse of Oyashiro. The idea that villagers are allowed to kill their enemies on the night of Watanagashi had infected them. The villagers were the cells of this huge creature called Hinamizawa. Each cell would be taught who the enemy was. The set date was basically a green light for whoever was in the best position to kill the enemy. That was the truth of the curse of Oyashiro. Therefore, the one who actually killed Satoshi isn't my enemy. The one who set up this murder system, and the one who named Satoshi's family as the enemy is my enemy. should be the broader definition. Hinamizawa itself and the very system of Oyashiro's curse is my enemy. I already killed the hag, the one who designed the system. Himeyoshi, the one whose job was to infect the villagers with the system, was already in my hands. I just had to find out who else was involved and how much. It was like pulling a weed while being very careful not to break its roots. I announced that Maibara Keiichi was one of the people who snuck into the shrine storage. I was certain that fact had already spread throughout the underside of the village. In other words, Maibara Keiichi was an object of the curse of Oyashiro now. Takano and Tomitake were found dead, having been killed in gruesome ways. That was the curse of Oyashiro. In that case, they could demon away 2 more people as sacrifices to calm the anger of Oyashiro. The set date for the curse was already over, but just like what happened to Satoshi demoning away, was allowed a little extra time. Something would happen to Maibara Keiichi within a few days. I had to wait patiently, careful not to let my enemy simply take Maibara Keiichi, my bait. Keiichi had been yelling on the other side of the phone for some time. He kept yelling that he didn't want to go to the ritual storehouse to begin with. He claimed that he was simply invited by Takano and me. He shouldn't be in danger because of that, he said. He was feeling a sense of crisis and tension. This is going to work. The livelier the bait, the easier it is to spot. Shut up, I've heard enough of your pitiful tears. I hung up the phone. There's no point in talking to him when he got like that. Besides, I already achieved my goal, which was to make him realize the danger awaiting him. I took a deep breath and called the house of the village chief. Hello, Kimiyoshi residents. This is Sonozaki. So, did you find the mayor? Oh, it's you, Mion. We've been calling everyone but no luck. We can't find him. I don't know who else to call. I wonder where he is. We called a few places too, but nothing. I talked to Granny, and she says we should have the youth group look for him. At this time of day, besides, we aren't even sure if he's really missing. It's right after Watanagashi. She just thinks we should be cautious. If the youth group can't find him, then we should call the police first thing in the morning. We'd rather not get the police involved unless we really have to, though. Did Oreo say that? Yes. If you don't believe me, I'll have her get on the phone. Oh no! I understand. Okay, we'll gather the youth group and look for him. If they can't find him, we'll call the police in the morning. Please call the leader of the youth group then. I'll be right over in Granny's place. Thank you. I'll get everyone together right away. Okay. See you later. The youth group had gathered at the Furude Shrine. They were going to try to find the mayor. I also had to go in the absence of the hag. Just to be mean, I stopped by the underground torture room to let the mayor know that I was headed to the Furude Shrine to search for him. Incidentally, according to the tab on the keychain, this underground torture room was actually called the Underground Storehouse for Ritual Implements. This is the man who was yelling that whoever trespasses in the ritual storehouse should be killed. Although it was an underground ritual storehouse, he was there now, atoning for what he had done. It was pretty ironic. Maybe I was the only one who felt that way, though. How are you doing, Uncle Kimiyoshi? Kimiyoshi didn't say a word, but he made a noise with a chain. Everyone is making such a fuss because they can't find you. Your family called me, so I suggested they gather the youth group to look for you. I'm heading over there now. What's this mean or what? Kimiyoshi wouldn't make that noise with a chain. He couldn't even express any emotion other than anguish. Is the chain too short? Why do I make it longer every time you give me an answer to a question? If it's even a little longer, you'll feel better. Kimiyoshi's hands were tied behind his back with a tight wire. He was wearing a leather collar with a chain, which was strapped tightly around his neck, too. This collar chain was a pulley attached to the ceiling, with a chain pulling him up toward it. That chain was very short and pulled very tight. Kimiyoshi had to stand on tiptoes to be able to breathe. He had been like that for almost an hour already. He was already exhausted. If I left him overnight, he'd probably end up hanging himself. You told me earlier that you didn't know, but I'll ask you one more time. Please tell me anything you know about Hojo Satoshi. Oh, sorry. You can't even talk, can you? I'll loosen the chain a little while we chat then. I turned a pulley just to loosen the chain that was pulling on Kimiyoshi's neck. Kimiyoshi's heels had finally touched the ground, relieving the pressure on his muscles. I really don't know, Shion. I really don't. You don't even know if he's dead or alive? I really don't know anything. Well, I guess that's just how the curse system of Hinamizawa works. It's possible you really don't know anything. Okay, then I'll change the question. As the head of the Kimiyoshi family, I would like you to tell me what you think happened to Satoshi. Is Satoshi dead or alive? Kimiyoshi didn't know what to say. If he said he didn't know, I'd tighten the chain and leave the room. That'd be like a death sentence for him. But all I said was I wanted him to speak as the head of the Kimiyoshi family. I didn't ask him to tell the truth, but he didn't know what to say to avoid souring my mood to get me to loosen the chain around him. He was obviously trying to figure out how to make me extend the chain. I've heard a rumor that he may be alive. Ah, about him going to Tokyo on a bullet train, right? The police have seen him in Tokyo, or something like that. Oishi had told me that Satoshi had been witnessing getting on the bullet train headed to Tokyo at Nagoya Station, but the police didn't know what really happened or what became of Satoshi after that. Therefore, this is simply a random assertion of Kimiyoshi's. Hey, head of the Kimiyoshi family. What would be the point in letting one of the cursed family members live after going through the trouble of making him disappear? I don't think there's any reason for that. Besides, who gave you this information? I was in close contact with Oishi for a while, but he never mentioned it to me. Uncle, if you're just saying that to make me happy, it's not going to work. You know that, don't you? I reached for the pulley controlling the chains around Kimiyoshi. That act alone that sent him panicking, as he feared them tightening once more. Sorry! I'm not trying to make you angry, Shion. I'm sorry! I don't have time for this. I'm simply asking you to help me look for Satoshi. That's all. I know that. I'll answer you. I took my hand off the pulley. Seeing that, Kimiyoshi began making loud groaning noises, but tried to show he was thinking hard. Be frank with me. Do you think he's alive? Or dead? I think... You shouldn't think he's alive. That figures. There's no point in letting him live, right? I agree with you. I really didn't mean anything too deep by it. But what I said truly scared Kimiyoshi. The police think he ran away using the money he saved to buy Sadako's birthday present, because he was the main suspect of his aunt's murder. What do you think about that? Well, I heard the culprit was some kind of drug addict. What do you think about that? Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I believe Satoshi is the culprit. The drug addict was probably a decoy the hag arranged. I suspected as much. The guy appeared out of nowhere. I didn't understand it at the time. So he was a decoy? I'm pretty sure. Why do you think that, though? The police were investigating the case, and Satoshi was their primary suspect, wasn't he? If he was going to be demoned away, she didn't want the police to continue the investigation, I guess. What Kimiyoshi just said is very interesting. He's perfectly correct. If the police continued their investigation, it would complicate things to forever demon away Satoshi. Therefore, the hag came up with a decoy in order to bring an end to the investigation. But fabricating a suspect can't be that easy, don't you agree? The only person who can do things like that is Oreo. I knew that hag was very powerful on the underside of Hinamiza, but I never knew she was that powerful. I'm sure you heard quite a few rumors during the dam conflict. Didn't you also hear things directly? During the dam protests, I actually saw them issuing orders to my relatives, like destroy their heavy machinery, or we can set up a checkpoint to blockade their construction vehicles. They set free their comrades from the police by coming up with alibis, destroying or forging evidence. I had seen relatives do these things, as well as calling the hag in the counselors to the house to protest. As a child, I was pretty impressed, but when I thought back, it was more than that. She was truly the mastermind who controlled the underside of the world. You heard about the kidnapping case of the grandson of the Minister of Construction, right? So, it really was a kidnapping, huh? I heard the grandson was demoned away and found in the middle of the mountains of Takasudo or Yagochi. That was at Orio's command. The minister promised to stop the dam construction, and the grandson was released. All the top of the people and the ex-guardians know that. I guess I was right in the middle of it when it was happening, but I didn't notice. The hag with Oops. Fuck. I keep messing up. Okay, let's try it again. Okay. That was Orio's command. The minister promised to stop the dam construction, and the grandson was released. All the top people and the ex-guardians know that. I guess I was right in the middle of it when it was happening, but I didn't notice. The hag with 3 families and the ex-guardians are truly magnificent, huh? How terrifying. Kimiyoshi finally realized the situation he was in. He was answering my questions. That made me happy, but the more Kimiyoshi told me the truth, the more I realized Satoshi was really dead. That made me very sad. Who actually demoned away Satoshi? I don't know. We were never asked who actually executed Orio's orders. He was right. That's how the system worked. And so that was a bad question. Whoever did it was a great job because his body hasn't been found. That's not easy. Putting aside who actually killed him, it's possible Oreo has helped to get rid of the body. You know about the well farther down from there, the one that used to dump bodies, don't you? Oops. Who the fuck is talking? I'm confused. Fuck. Help! I'm stupid! Okay. Yeah, I do. It's a lot safer to dump a body in the well than bury it somewhere in the mountains. Whoever disappears becomes a sacrifice to calm the anger of Oyashiro. That was the rule of this game. Therefore, the bodies must never be discovered. That's why the bodies had to be dumped somewhere. Nobody could find them. It's very possible the well was used for that. Then Satoshi is at the bottom of that well? I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the huge cave with the walls and the cells. As I turned on the lights in the cave, Mio noticed me and gave me a worried look. I ignored her and headed to the cell in the back. I was still very impressed by how the well was hidden. It was almost artistic. I shone the flashlight at the bottom of the well. I had no way of knowing how deep that well was. The light at the bottom of the flashlight wasn't strong enough to reach the bottom. I inhaled and screamed into the well, "Satoshi! Satoshi!" Satoshi's name echoed again and again. It was obviously a very deep well. I thought of climbing down using the wedges on the wall. With the flashlight hanging from my neck, I couldn't light my footing properly. And even if there was enough lighting, I didn't know if the wedges were sturdy enough. It'd be like Satoshi was at the bottom of this well. That's when I felt it. A warm hand rubbed my head, for sure. Shion, you finally found me. Satoshi! I've been looking for you for so long! I'm sorry I couldn't find you while you were still alive! Sorry. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, Shion. There was nothing that you could have done before I was killed, but you did everything you could do after I was dead. Satoshi, I want to join you. I'm coming right now. I'm going to jump, so please catch me. Satoshi smiled bitterly. I was saddened to see him reject me. Shion, I'm happy you found me. But you are alive, Shion. It's so important to be alive, you can't waste it. If you aren't here, I don't want to live. I want to be with you, Satoshi. I want to be close to you. I want you to rub my head again. I want to spend time with you. I'll be a good girl. I want to be with you. Live. Do I have to? Live and enjoy your life, okay? What's so fun about living alone? We'll find out. So as long as you're alive. Live. I will live. I'll live. The eerie well now felt warm. I wasn't allowed to go down to the bottom, but the edge of this well was the place you and I could meet. Okay. Okay. Mion. Satoshi. I found him. He's at the bottom of the well, isn't he? I think so. I can't think of anywhere else he would be. Mion started to sob. You weren't there when Satoshi was killed, were you? No. If you were there, would you have begged the hag to forgive him? Yes, I would have begged her to let him live. Liar. You liar! On that day a year ago, I had just recalled how cruel Mion was then. She forced me to rip out my nails, playing her role as a successor. Even if she was there when Satoshi was killed, she wouldn't have stopped being the successor. Satoshi was brought to the torture room when he saw Mion. I'm sure he thought she would save him. Even as he heard the family had read out his death sentence, I'm sure he looked at Mion and believed that she would save him. He believed that Mion was acting that way only because she was with her relatives. He believed she would help him, but she didn't do anything. He was strapped to the restraining device, and yet she still wouldn't do anything. Mion was cruel. Mion, isn't it about time that you helped me? I see. I get it. You're with the rest of the family members, so you can't even show a hint of compassion. That sucks. Help him! Help him! Why didn't you help him? You saw him looking at you, begging to help him, didn't you? Why didn't you help him? He was going through a rough time because this is awful on. You didn't help him! You pretended to sympathize, but you didn't help him! You ignored him! He was crying because you didn't help him! I tried to support him. Even when you didn't protect him from killing us, I did! I sacrificed myself to fight for him! 3 wills done for nothing! But it wasn't enough to rescue Satoshi. I couldn't help him. Do you know why? Because I was Shion then. As Shion, I was kept away from Hinami's and nobody told me anything. I couldn't know anything. But you were different. You were Mion. You were right in the middle of everything, and you knew everything, and everyone told you everything. If I were you, I could have helped Satoshi. I would have, but you were Mion. Give back Mion. That name isn't just yours. It's mine too. Besides, it was my mine to begin with, remember? I just let you be Mion, remember? It was mine! Give it back to me! Give me my name back! I can't stand that you even look like Mion. If I were Mion then... I kicked the bars, I kicked them again and again! Mion curled up fearfully in the back of the cell, as if she were trying to prevent the bars from crashing onto her. Oh my god. What the hell? Oh my god. I don't remember her doing that this early. Oh my god. Alright. Let's read the new tip. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Oh. Okay. Oh. Let's read the tips. Notebook page 188. After that, I joined the youth group and searched for Kimiyoshi. I went down the town council phone directory and called to see if he had visited, and had the group split according to the circular notice divisions and sent them to search the town. Everyone seemed to be assuming they wouldn't find him, but since I knew they definitely never would, it was just bothersome to me. Even after midnight, they were all still enthusiastically looking for him. I bore the sleepiness while yawning, and then I heard somebody whisper, last year we did the same thing when Hojo Satoshi went missing. The youth group was looking for someone who would never be found, just like last year. I was yawning because I knew this. Last year there also have been people who were yawning and grinning on the inside. When we did stop searching last year, do you remember? When Hojo Satoshi was missing. Oh, what time is it? I guess it was around midnight. It was already 2 a.m. Although they had spent this much time searching for Kimiyoshi, they didn't do the same when Satoshi went missing. After all, people knew they couldn't find him. They must have been sleepy. They must have said they should leave it to the police. Shit, I want to kill the people who said that. Okay. Alright, Shion. Okay, let's end it. Okay, the stream's over. We're gonna end it. Oh, great. Okay. Let's end the stream right now. Oh, God. Help. Oh, no. Oh, my God. Okay, we're done. Goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. I'm sorry.